It started with the birds. Not dramatically, not all at once in the way that disaster movies would have you believe these things happen. The sudden mass exodus, the black cloud of wings rising from every tree and rooftop simultaneously in a single cinematic moment of warning. It was quieter than that, more gradual. The kind of change that you register in your body before your mind catches up with it. The way you sometimes wake up in the night and lie there in the dark knowing something is different before you can identify what. The birds simply stopped. Not stopped flying. They were still there, on the wires, in the trees, on the ledges of buildings in the usual configurations. But they were not making any sound. A street that normally ran under a continuous low weave of bird noise was running without it. The sparrows that lived in the hedgerow outside her window every morning were present and moving and opening their beaks. Nothing was coming out. She noticed it on her way to work on a Wednesday in late October. She stood on the pavement outside her building and looked up at the wire above her where 3 pigeons sat in a row, ruffling and shifting the way pigeons do, and understood that the silence was not the absence of birds, but something that had been placed over the birds. A silence that was on top of the world rather than coming from inside it. By mid-morning, it was not just the birds. The planes were gone. Not grounded. She checked the flight tracking app she kept on her phone, and the screen was full of the usual data. Flights in the air, routes across the country and across the ocean, hundreds of them. But the sky above her city, which should have carried the constant low background hum of air traffic that urban people stop consciously hearing after a while, but that is always present, always there beneath everything else, was completely clean. No contrails, no distant engine noise. Nothing. She called a friend who lived on the other side of the city, asked if she could hear the planes. A pause, then, "No. Now that you say it, no." She called her mother 200 miles away. Her mother went outside to listen, came back, said, "It is quiet here too. Very quiet." And then, after a pause that lasted long enough to be significant, "The birds are not singing." By early afternoon, it was on the news. Not leading the news, not yet, but present in the scroll at the bottom of the screen. Reports of unusual atmospheric silence across multiple regions. Aviation authorities confirming normal flight operations. Wildlife experts declining to speculate on record. A brief segment on the evening broadcast in which a presenter mentioned it with the careful lightness of someone describing something they have been instructed not to escalate, followed immediately by a segment about something completely unrelated, as if the transition itself was a form of management. By early afternoon, the sky had also changed color. Not dramatically, not the red sky of sunset or the green sky that precedes a tornado. A shift in the quality of the light, the specific white-gray of the overcast sky taking on a depth that overcast skies do not normally have. A sense that the cloud cover was not cloud cover in the usual sense, that what was above the city was not weather, that it was something that had positioned itself above the weather. She was standing in the car park behind her office building at 4 in the afternoon when the second silence happened. The first silence had been the absence of sky sound, birds, planes, wind at altitude. The second silence was the absence of everything else. For approximately 40 seconds, the city went entirely quiet. No traffic, no voices, no mechanical sound of any kind. The specific urban noise floor that is so constant and so complete that its absence is more alarming than any sound that could replace it. 40 seconds. She counted. She was not the only one counting. Across the car park, she could see 3 other people who had come outside for various reasons, all standing completely still, all looking up. all with the expression of people whose bodies had made a decision that their minds had not finished processing. The decision to be very still. The decision that the appropriate response to whatever was above the clouds was to be as small and as quiet and as invisible as possible. And then the noise came back. All of it at once. The full texture of the city returning in a single moment as if a switch had been thrown. Traffic, voices, the hum of climate systems on the sides of buildings. Everything normal, everything exactly as it had been. Except the birds were still silent. They remained silent for the rest of that day and through the night and into the following morning. The accounts that documented this, and there were many, spread across social media and local news and the communities that form around anomalous events and attempt to build understanding out of collective observation, noted that the birds resumed singing at approximately 7:14 in the morning of the following day, simultaneously. All of them. Across the entire region, as far as the reports extended, as if they had been waiting for something to pass. As if the silence had not been a malfunction or an absence, but a behavior, a deliberate response to a presence that had been above the sky and was now gone. The birds had gone quiet the way small animals go quiet when a predator is near. Not because something had taken their voices, but because silence was the correct survival strategy for the duration of whatever had been overhead. The 40-second silence was never officially explained. Aviation authorities issued a statement about electromagnetic interference from solar weather events. Wildlife agencies issued a statement about a known but poorly understood phenomenon in which bird populations across a region can synchronize behavior in response to atmospheric pressure changes. Both statements were technically coherent. Neither of them addressed the 40 seconds. Neither of them addressed the quality of the light. Neither of them addressed the depth in the cloud cover that had not looked like cloud cover. Neither of them addressed what 3 separate aircraft reported to air traffic control during a window that partially overlapped with the 40-second silence. Reports that were logged and then classified under a designation that is used for incidents that are under active investigation and cannot be publicly discussed. The contents of those reports have not been released. What the pilots described to their families, because pilots are people and people tell their families things, was consistent across all 3 accounts, despite the aircraft being in different positions and having no communication with each other during the window in question. They each reported from above the cloud cover, looking down and seeing something on the surface of the clouds that should not have been there. Something large. Something that was not a weather formation and not a shadow and not any atmospheric phenomenon that any of the 3 pilots, between them carrying decades of flight experience, had ever encountered or been trained to recognize. Something that had been resting on top of the cloud cover the way an object rests on a surface, and that was no longer there when the 40-second silence ended. No longer there because it had moved, or because it had gone, or because it had gone into the clouds rather than above them and was now below the cloud cover and above the city and between the birds who had gone silent beneath it and the sky it had come from. Or because it had always been there, and the 40-second silence was not the moment of its arrival. It was the moment it noticed us. The birds sing every morning now. The planes run on schedule. The sky is the sky. Life has the texture of ordinary life in the way that ordinary life reasserts itself after something happens that the available frameworks are insufficient to process. But she still goes outside every morning and looks up. Not anxiously, not dramatically, just up. At the sky. At the particular quality of the light on overcast days. At the depth in the cloud cover when it sits lower than usual. And she listens for the birds. because she has decided that as long as they are singing, everything is fine. And on the mornings when they are quieter than usual, she goes back inside and she waits. If this one stayed with you, hit subscribe, because we go deep into the days, the silences, and the things above the sky that the official statements do not cover. Drop a comment and tell us which story you want us to cover next. Until then, listen to the birds in the morning. They know things we do not.